My name is Mick. I teach at Martin Collegiate, and I teach senior science. We're all wondering now. And we're all learning as we go, and I can tell you what I currently do, but we'd be here all day if I told you what I've done over the 15 years that sort of led me here. And in 10 years, if we have this interview again, I'm sure it'll be radically different. But what I'm currently doing probably looks a lot like formative assessment in other teachers' classes, feedback, either again on the individual or the group class, whether that be corrections to the material or, like often I find myself writing why or go further, right? So even when they read it, it kind of prompts them to think, because, whether or not they actually, and I offer chances to come back and do retests or resubmissions of assignments and stuff too. So it looks like that for sure, it's feedback based. And I know part of the definition of formative assessment is that no mark is attached to it. So I don't know if what I do is technically formative in that sense because I do attach a mark to it. I think, right or wrong, we've set up this system where marks are important, and we can say that they aren't all we want, but I think it's a little disingenuous sometimes to say, the mark doesn't matter, but then at the end of the semester, the ministry asks me to submit a mark between 1 and 100, and if I don't, it's one of the few things I can be fired for. So I think it's and scholarships and all these, we hand out awards for gold, silver, bronze. So I think to be doing that out of one side of our mouth and the other side of the mouth say, the number doesn't actually matter. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but we've made marks matter. And so the way I handle it is an assignment that I would consider formative-ish, if I can call it that. I would give a mark based on completion, where the completion of the assignment, and typically they're quite small assignments, that I would then provide an answer key to, or will take up as a class, right? So they'll end up getting the quote unquote correct answers, whether I let them self-mark it or again, we take it up as a class or however that looks. But I think if I don't include it in at least in their minds as part of their final mark, it matters less to them. And I know that's not the ideal. And I know we want our students to be intrinsically motivated. And I know that's often not going to happen. And students don't ask in my class, is this worth marks? Because I make everything worth marks. But the little trick that I pull is when I do these formative-ish assignments, I'll make it out of maybe 5. And by completion of the assignment, I'll give them their 5 out of 5, but I weight it. You can do the weighting changes. I weight it low, like at maybe half or 0.25. Parents and students don't understand weighting to begin with. So maybe I'm not trying to be deceptive at all. It's just I'm saying the completion of this assignment is another step closer to satisfying this outcome. And I don't need to maybe find a gradient between 3.7 and 3.8 out of 5. So that way the students feel like they're being rewarded with something that they've been taught as a rewarding class. But in the end, the marks don't really matter, which I think is supposed to be at the heart of the formative assessment. And so I guess it's maybe tricking the students a little bit that it's worth marks, and it is. They truly are worth at the end, but nothing compared to, by the time the tests get entered or these larger assignments get entered, they're really not worth very much. Another advantage to doing that is when it's in gradebook, it's entered in as an assignment, and that means that the gradebook is a list of everything we've done in chronological order. And I'm at a school, every school has students that miss, but I'm at a school with a sports academy. And my first year here, a third of my class went to Nice, France for 3 weeks. And stuff like that happens all the time. So you really need to have an online presence. And part of that is keeping my gradebook up to date and transparent, like I said before. And then by entering in all these formative-ish assignments, they can see what we've done and the way that I've graded it. That being said, I know teachers that are doing true formative assessment where they're not assigning marks at all. They are entering it into their gradebook programs. They're just not including it in a final mark. Often there's a check mark or radio button to not include in final mark, and they're doing that. I have heard from some of them, though, that students and parents will come to them and say, if they did miss for a legitimate reason or not, and say, yeah, that was done a month ago, but it wasn't worth any marks. Do I really have to do it? Well, yes, it's part of your learning. And that's a conversation I think you would have to have more often if you're not including in the final mark. And I don't have that conversation very much because it's a 0 until you do it. And even though that 0 or that 5 weighted at 0.5, realistically in terms of their mark is maybe a fraction of a percent by the time we get to the end of the course, they don't see it that way. And so it's extrinsic motivation I can provide to help get the assignments done. And if I believe that the assignments I'm giving truly help them learn the concepts, I think the more I encourage them to do them, the better. So it's kind of long-winded, but that's my current stance.